So, who really won the Democratic primary debate? Let's find out. Oreo Ingram here, guys. Good morning. The Democratic national debate, Democratic primary debate, excuse me, was last night. And here are some key takeaways from that debate. First of all, I think the winner of the debate, I know Sanders did have a good night. He usually always has a good night. Everyone else really didn't. Biden had an okay night. He did what he needed to do. No big gaffes. But the person who had the best night on that stage, clearly, was Pete Buttigieg. And I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. I hope, because, man, that's a tough last name. But when he went after Warren, who a lot of people went after her, like, because she's becoming the quote unquote front runner, even though it's kind of early. But when he went after her on her Medicare plan and how that's going to divide the country, make it even more divisive, which I agree with. By the way, I'm an independent, but I hate Trump with a passion. I think he morally is horrible for this country. And so I'm definitely leaning towards the other side, this election, obviously. But Pete really was very clear about his healthcare plan. He was very clear about that, and not only that, him really attacking Warren on private insurance, because if Democrats think that they're going to beat Trump in 2020 and on the platform of getting rid of people's private insurance, just getting rid of that is not a good idea whatsoever. Now you can have, I don't know, you can have a version of Medicare for all and still allow people the choice of keeping their private option or going into Medicare for all. You can still have both versions, and I believe Pete was trying to express that. But if Democrats are really, particularly Warren, and even though I like Sanders, I'm actually leaning towards Sanders and going to vote for Sanders. Particularly with Warren, if she's really, well, any of these Democrats, if they think kicking people off their private insurance is a good idea, just getting rid of private health insurance, that's a bad idea. And I like that Pete brought that up, and I love that he was adamant about it. And I love that Pete is center left, because I'm center left essentially, even though I declare myself an independent or whatever. But I like that Pete is center left. And speaking of which, I think Pete, if he doesn't get the nomination, and I don't think he will, honestly, because it's either going to be Sanders, Warren, or Biden. They're all out front, those three. So I really think it's either going to be either one of those three. I think Pete would make a tremendous, and I don't mean this to downgrade him or to lessen him in any way, but I think Pete would make a tremendous vice president. I mean, just picture him on that stage, debating Pence, really advocating for whoever it is, whether it's Biden, whether it's Sanders, whether it's Warren. I think he'd be a great VP for any of those three front runners who will eventually get the nomination. He's from the Midwest, and that's a plus. He served in the Army. He served in the Navy, but he served in the military, and he's been deployed. He's been to the Middle East. So that's going to really speak to these working class white males, and working class white women in the Midwest, particularly in the Midwest, in the East, that these swing states that Democrats neglected in 2016, but they can't neglect in 2020. They're going to need Wisconsin. They're going to need Pennsylvania. They're going to need Ohio. Those states in particular, kind of in the Midwest, kind of in the Rust Belt, kind of in the East as well. Like, they're going to need those swing states. And I think Pete, being from Indiana, being from a Midwest, even he's a Democrat from a huge conservative area. In Pence's country, by the way, he's the Democrat from Pence's country. I think he can appeal, just like Biden can, and just like Sanders can too, to these working class whites in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Wisconsin that Democrats desperately need to win, because it's not 2040, it's not 2044, it's not 2048, it's not 2036. Like in 2020, working class whites make up the majority of the voting bloc, and if you don't appeal to them, as we learned in 2016, you can win the popular vote, but if you don't appeal to working class whites, if you don't win states, because winning the presidency, it's not about winning the popular vote, it's not about being the most popular, it's about winning states. And we need to elect people that can appeal to those working class workers in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Wisconsin, in those states. And I think Pete Buttigieg on your ticket can do that. So, I mean, whether it's a Sanders Buttigieg ticket, which would be great, it would pair a kind of far left. I don't want to say, well, yeah, kind of far left. Even though I'm voting for Sanders, I like Sanders, with Buttigieg, who's more pragmatic, who is left centrist. I think that would be great. Even Buttigieg with Biden, who are both kind of center left, that would be a great pair. And Warren, who's super far left, with Buttigieg, who's central, a left centrist, that would kind of even them out, and that would appeal to the entire Democratic base. Not only that, it would appeal to independents. Not only that, it would also appeal to disenfranchised Republicans who have said enough with Donald Trump. So if Democrats are wise, they would consider having Pete Buttigieg on their ticket, because I don't think he's going to win the nomination, but having him on your ticket would speak volumes, I think. And as far as those other folks, I think Steyer had a good night too. I just don't think this is the election for a billionaire, another billionaire to win the presidency. And he's kind of coming in a little too late. But I mean, I like the guy. He was saying some he had a strong night. He was saying some important things, but I don't think he has much of a chance. I think Castro just needs to drop out of the race. It's just money that doesn't need to be spent. He comes across as pretty mean. His likability is kind of tough, so I think he has a problem with likability. So I just think he needs to drop out of the race. I respect Gabbard a lot. I respect her, from Hawaii. I love Hawaii. She served our country. She's not super far left, and she's not even far left at all. She's more of a centrist, and you can even argue that she's not really a Democrat. She's more of an independent. But I love that she's strong our country. I love her character, but I don't think she has maybe much of a shot at winning the nomination. Maybe she can be a part of someone's ticket. Maybe that would also be a good idea. Maybe not Warren, because you've seen them bigger. Booker too. I think Booker obviously should keep running. He shouldn't drop out. But the first three I mentioned should definitely drop out. But Booker needs to catch fire, and maybe early next year he will. Maybe he will catch fire. Very likable. I don't know what he would. I'm kind of torn on whether he could be on someone's ticket if he doesn't get the nomination, because I think it's going to be tough to oversee those top three. But if he doesn't get the nomination, I mean, he said some pretty harsh things about Biden not having the stamina to be president. So if he's on Biden's ticket, I don't know if that would make much sense at all. And the fact that they're from the same geographical area, that also, they could still appeal to working class whites in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Wisconsin, who they really need to appeal to. But I don't know. I'm on the fence about I guess where I see Cory Booker in this 2020 primary race. I like the guy a lot. I like his character. Smart guy. He played football. He's a football man. I'm a football man. Stanford Law School. It's just a great character guy. But I'm curious to see where he ends up once the Iowa caucus, once these caucuses start to fall. Not fall, but be in. So the jury is out on Booker, but high character guy, and that's the kind of character we need in the White House, frankly. But will he get to the White House or get out of this primary race or get on someone's ticket? I don't know. the jury's still out on that. But all in all, this Democratic debate last night on CNN, I don't know if it changed anything for anybody. Frankly, maybe Warren, she may get a little bit of a dip, but not much at all, really. Biden, I think, is going to stay the same. Sanders, I think, is going to stay the same. His support, his young people like myself, is still gonna be there. So I think Pete, excuse me, it's early. I think Pete will get a boost, and I'm telling you, man, I think people are gonna be, especially within these campaigns, gonna be like, man, I think Pete would look pretty good on our ticket. I really do, in some form or variety. I really do. And by the way, if Warren or Sanders, if none of them, or Yang, by the way, Yang had also a good night too. I like his math pen. Yang always has a good night. The fact that he's still in it in October, I don't think anyone would have guessed. And the fact that automation, it was so talked about in a Democratic debate, a very important topic, but no one would have predicted that automation would be talked about this much in a Democratic debate this far. It just shows you the effect that Yang is having on the campaign. And they're just running a brilliant campaign with Yang. But I can see Yang, I can see Sanders or Warren if they don't get the nomination, if they don't want to be on anyone's ticket, which I don't think they would want to be on anyone's ticket but their own, but at the top of the ticket. But I can see them being the Secretary of Treasury. I really do. I really do think Democrats in 2020 are going to be like, no more status quo. Like we need like a revolution in this country. We need to attack these industries that have been bankrupting and that are so corrupt and that have been taking advantage of Americans, working class, middle Americans, poor Americans, since the dawn of the country, since the existence of this country. And enough is enough. So I can see, you may think I'm crazy, I don't care. I can see Yang, I can see Warren, I can see Sanders, particularly maybe Warren being the Secretary of Treasury. I think that would be a perfect position if none of them get the presidency. Particularly Warren, if he doesn't get the presidency, I could definitely see her Secretary of Treasury. I could even see Bernie. I'd love to see Bernie if he doesn't get the nomination being Secretary of Treasury. I don't think that'll happen, but I would love to see that. And I could certainly see Yang in that position too. He has the credentials. He is the most, well, him and Sanders, most intellectually, economic-wise, of the revolution we need in this country. So, time will tell. But those are my takeaways from the Democratic debate last night. Like and subscribe and comment. Feel free to do that. Give you more insight into the 2020 race for presidency. Oreo Ingram here for Black Nerds Everywhere. Peace and love, guys. And love trumps hate. Remember that.